Yeah, I spent a bit of time here, yeah.
Nice to meet you, Dave. My name is Rikkers. I'm from Cooperative, Southern Wisconsin. Wow. Yeah, we did before.
What could that variable be, Dave? What do you think? Theory of relativity. I know.
You know him better than I do. I just know him and I don't live with him. This is our 100 session session.
I didn't find anything, and I know you only need 15 million to complete the entire. Right on Route 1, too. Right on US 1.
Okay, well, good morning. The subcommittee will come to order. Thanks everybody for being here and for joining us for the FY17 budget request for rural development mission area. And I'd like to welcome our guests that are here today. Ms. Lisa Mensah, Undersecretary for Rural Development. Good to have you here. Sam Rikkers, Administrator for the Rural Business Cooperative Service. Good to have you here. Mr. Tony Hernandez, Administrator for Rural Housing Services. Welcome. Mr. Brandon McBride, Administrator for Rural Utility Service. Welcome. Good to have you here. And, of course, good to have Mike Young back again, the USDA's Budget Director. Ms. Mensah, Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Young, we welcome you back because we know you have been here on several occasions, but, of course, take the opportunity to do a special welcome to Mr. Rikkers and Mr. McBride to the subcommittee for their first time. So we're glad to have you here and look forward to hearing about the challenges that face rural America and also the actions that rural development is taking to address the issues that come before you. As I mentioned in our previous hearings, we've established about 4 primary goals that we try to focus in on this subcommittee. The first goal is increasing oversight efficiency and the need for effective outcomes. The second is to keep rural America vibrant. The third is supporting American farmers, ranchers, and producers. And fourth, protecting the health of people, plants, and animals. This morning's hearing will explore the FY17 budget request for rural development. Your budget request proposes $2.9 billion for rural development in FY17, an increase of $58 million from FY16 enacted level. I will admit that it seems there are some questionable items that are in the request, including the creation of a new untested programs at the expense of decreases to other effective, popular, and proven programs. Investments in rural development programs support infrastructure, business development, and job creation, and assist some of our most vulnerable populations and valuable populations. Together, these programs strive to create a sustainable rural economy that will enable future generations to enjoy the way of life in rural America. The programs administered by the Rural Development are committed to helping improve rural communities and quality of life through direct loans, loan guarantees, grants, and technical assistance that support essential public facilities and services. These may include water and waste infrastructure, housing opportunities, establishing health or community facilities, or providing infrastructure for electric, telephone, and broadband services. Rural development programs target these communities where financing options are limited or non-existent with the hope of empowering and growing rural areas. The opportunities rural development programs provide cannot be emphasized enough. Rural development has a portfolio of loans exceeding $200 billion that will administer nearly $40 billion in loans, loan guarantees, and grants this fiscal year. However, I think everyone in the room understands that we are operating in a limited funding environment. While recognizing the many competing needs, responsibility management of those needs against the physical realities results sometimes in difficult choices. As a result, we are going to do our best to address the highest priority needs within the subcommittee's jurisdiction and our funding allocation. And we need your help this morning to identify those priorities and where they are. Today, I'm sure we'll discuss the proposed reductions in the water and waste disposal loan and grant programs, the mutual and self-help housing program, the business and industry loan program, the direct broadband loans program, and the circuit rider program. These are established, effective programs that address the greatest needs of rural America. Proposals for new pilot programs, including the Rural Child Poverty Pilot and the Rural Core Pilot Program, raises questions about the funding priorities put forth in this budget. My initial concern with these proposals is that the Rural Child Poverty Pilot Program appears duplicative of existing government programs, and the Rural Core Pilot is supposed to establish what rural development seemingly should already be doing in the first place. We should not be starting new programs, particularly when we have to work so hard to ensure that there is sufficient funding to meet the basic needs for the existing housing, water, business development, and electric and telecommunication systems. To close, a growing percentage of rural development's budget is being consumed by the rural assistance accounts. While recognizing the need for affordable rural housing is great, the current cost growth, 25% increase since the year 2014, is not sustainable without considering reductions to other programs. We would like to discuss measures the department can take to control cost within the rental assistance program. This subcommittee understands the challenges that rural development is facing in trying to contain rental assistance cost while also finding tools to preserve the multifamily housing portfolio. We would wish to work with you with rural development to find solutions that will control costs while serving these individuals with the greatest need and retaining a strong portfolio at the same time. So once again, I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for taking time out of your schedule to be before us today. And with that, I'd like to recognize Mr. Farr, who is our distinguished ranking member, if he has any open remarks at this time.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I always think I get called distinguished because I'm leaving. But thank you very much. And thank you all for your service to the government and to our country. I actually got into politics to advocate for rural America. I learned it from being a Peace Corps volunteer in Latin America, just how do you address the underlying conditions that create a culture of poverty where people don't have access to safe place to sleep, access to education to learn how to read and write, or access to medicine when you have a cold or a broken bone or you're in serious trouble and need access to medicine. And then I got into politics at the local level as a county supervisor. So I love talking about this subject matter. And I would hope, Mr. Chairman, in your opening remarks talked about the goal is to have effective outcomes. And I would suggest that if we just try to beat around status quo, we're not having, what we're doing is failing. Because for the first time on record, the population of rural America is dropping. And 116,000 people have left over the last 4 years. Well, urban populations are increasing to grow and haven't the infrastructure to do that. And, you know, you can see that in the homeless population and the cost of housing, particularly in my area. I represent a rural area that now has the highest cost per capita of housing in the United States. They've done a good job of making it a really quality of life experience living there. But at the expense of that has been that we've stopped all those urban sprawl and just building housing willy-nilly, and therefore the existing stock gets more and more expensive. So, you know, I think this is a really important topic because 15% of all the American population lives in rural areas. That's about 46 million people. And, you know, Secretary Vilsack, I think very, very emotionally the other day talked about the importance of rural America, that those that live, the rest of us couldn't live without it. It produces our food, produces our energy, stewards our lands and our watersheds, and so on, and has created business owners and entrepreneurs in the rural area. And that 10% of the rural adults are veterans. I mean, they're really that commitment of giving back to your country because they've learned to give back to the land that feeds them and takes care of them. There's a remarkable culture in America that lives in the rural areas. And so I really hope that we can tackle what it is that's causing people to leave rural areas and not to buy in and to sustain. I mean, the quality of life for where I live is open space. I tell people we sell scenery because it's one of the most beautiful places in America, and it attracts people. And that attracting of people attracts intellectual capital. We've built more universities and institutions of learning, creating great, you know, photographers like Ansel Adams and writers like John Steinbeck. The list goes on and on. But so I think the rural America has this incredible ability to provide a real American spirit of quality of life. But the three ingredients you need are, you know, access to education, and I think that now is in essence, to have access to education, you have access to communication. You've got to be able to get access to the internet, and so much of rural America isn't wired, and it can't get into the big world, the real world out there. I really support what this department's doing, and I would hope that we can figure out how to not just cut, squeeze, and trim, which is what sort of the option Congress has. Should we give some more money, or should we cut it, squeeze, and trim it? And we end up, you know, the Democrats want to give more money, Republicans just want to cut, squeeze, and trim, and things stay broken. How can we just get a better bang for our buck? And how do we reprioritize? We've just been talking about how we ought to do housing. In my area, since I've been in local government, we don't give any money out unless there's self-help. Self-help housing is phenomenal. We require developers. You want to build in this beautiful area? Fine. 10% of your housing, or 20%, depending on that, when we close military bases, 40% of your housing on your dime is going to be sold below market rate or rented below market rate. That's called inclusionary zoning. And we don't give them a ticket to build unless they do it. And everybody says, well, that's, you know, you can't do that. It pencils out. They wouldn't. They get more units per land for doing that. But we don't have to put any public money into that at all. So you know, those are the kinds of business, capitalism that we could use to, and I'd love to hear suggestions on how we might nudge our private sector investors into being able to get more social benefit or more infrastructure for rural America. And one of the questions I was thinking about asking, and I'll just ask it now. When we develop all this, as Secretary Vilsack, all our energy comes from rural America. So when we're drilling for oil or building solar or wind energy, which is all down, or hydro, all that stuff that we get, all that energy, those electrons that are generated out of products from rural America, why can't we get those developers or the investors of that to also solve the lack of access to those same things, energy and internet, on their dime? They're getting the benefit of using rural resources to make a profit, and we ought to be able to get some solution to our rural problems out of it. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I appreciate you having this hearing, and again, thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Mr. Farr. Undersecretary Mensah, your written testimony is in the record without objection, and but we welcome you now to make any statements that you would like to make before the subcommittee, and then we'll go to questions after that. So I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Adderhold, and appreciate your remarks, and Mr. Farr's and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to present the President's 2017 budget for the Department of Agriculture's Rural Development Mission Area. I'm accompanied this morning, as you noted, by Rural Development Administrators Brandon McBride, Sam Rikkers, and Tony Hernandez. Rural Development, or RD, as we're known in our communities, manages a loan portfolio of more than $212 billion. We're organized into 3 agencies: Rural Utility Programs, Rural Business and Cooperative Service, and Rural Housing and Community Facilities. Our fundamental mission is to increase economic opportunity and improve the quality of life for all rural citizens. Our investments support rural residents looking for affordable, safe housing, municipalities seeking water infrastructure and community facilities, and small businesses, co-ops, and ag producers looking to expand to new markets. RD investment capital spurs economic development and the jobs that come with it. I appreciate the authorities and resources provided to us by Congress to allow us to continue our work on behalf of rural America. Since becoming Undersecretary, I've visited many projects to see how rural America benefits from our investments. I've also met many of our dedicated field staff who engage directly with local lenders and community partners to solve problems and explore options for economic development. One example of this remarkable collaboration was in Kentucky, where Chairman Rogers and I announced a loan guarantee to refinance the construction of a 12-bed psychiatric unit in Pineville Community Hospital. This key investment provides a rural community with access to critical health care, but it also keeps good jobs in the region. RD continues to make investments in water and electric and broadband because they continue to be necessary for rural America to be competitive. Last month, I joined Chairman Adderhold in Rainsville, Alabama, to announce the upgrade of the city's wastewater facility. And I also saw a telemedicine demonstration in nearby Geraldine, Alabama. This clinic can now better serve the surrounding area with access to new high-speed broadband, thanks to a telecommunications loan. RD really contributes to economic growth. Since 2009, we've created or saved more than 450,000 jobs, and we've helped 112,000 rural small businesses. In Portland, Maine, the Council of Governments received a Rural Energy for America, or a REAP grant, to explore the potential for ag producers and rural small businesses to incorporate renewable energy technologies. And in San Juan Bautista, California, I recently met with a producer who received a REAP grant for energy efficiency at her certified organic farm. And this farm not only grows and ships its own produce, but it cools and stores and ships for other local farms. So since 2009, RD has helped more than 1 million families to buy, repair, or refinance a home. And in 2015, we didn't leave $1 unspent in our program to provide direct mortgages to low and very low-income rural Americans. We understand the unique needs of rural residents, and we remain committed to serving them. RD plays a key role in USDA's place-based efforts to ensure that our loan and grant programs are available and accessible, even in persistently poor areas. Our proactive approach identified and assisted areas of greatest need in rural America, and I am committed to providing increased opportunities to allow everyone to share in the prosperity of a growing economy. I want to end on our people. Every day, nearly 5,000 rural development professionals work to grow rural businesses, provide affordable rural housing, maintain and upgrade infrastructure investments. And our staff live and raise their families in the communities in which they serve. They're smart and they're dedicated and they're resourceful. And because Congress has supported our field-based delivery structure, we have staff in every state who are singularly focused on making rural communities stronger and more vibrant. Yet in recent years, fewer personnel have done more work. So we need to continue to invest in our people to ensure that they can provide quality services. Congress has provided significant resources to make a real impact in rural places. And I assure you that not only are we careful with the dollars we receive, we are always working to collaborate to stretch those dollars further. I want to thank you for your continued interest and your support of RD programs and the people who deliver them. Together, I believe we can coordinate and leverage our resources and investments for rural America's future. Appreciate this opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Undersecretary. Good to have you before us today, as I mentioned earlier, and we very much enjoyed you coming to Alabama last month and to have a chance to visit with us and to see some good work that's happening through rural development. We're glad to welcome the Chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Rogers, here today. Chairman Rogers is bouncing between subcommittees today, as I'm not sure how many subcommittees Mr. Chairman is taking place, but we glad to have you here, and we'd like to now turn it over to you for any questions that you might have of the Undersecretary and our other guests are here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the courtesy. And I apologize for being late, but as you say, we've got 3 simultaneous hearings taking place that I have to be at all 3. We're trying to expedite the budget process this year because we've got a short year here. So I beg your pardon. Thank you all for being here. And Madam Secretary, thank you for coming to Kentucky. We had, and many others on your staff. Mr. Hernandez was there, and we had a great visit to what I like to call Silicon Holler. And you motivated us in a major way. I appreciate that very much. So thank you for also Tom Fern, the Kentucky State Director, and he's just been terrific over these years for the very important work that you do in my district and across the Commonwealth. Many rural communities in Kentucky have benefited from your dedication to improving the quality of life by utilizing the vast array of programs offered through rural development. I appreciate that visit to Pineville, Kentucky, that you just recently were on, in addition to the others. As you know, my district has been devastated by the loss of over 10,000 coal mining jobs in the last couple of years, not to mention a lot of other unrelated type jobs. We've been working on a regional development initiative known as Shaping Our Appalachian Region, SOAR, that the Governor Beshear and I kicked off 2 years ago, and the new governor and I are continuing. Since the beginning of that initiative, which covers about a third of the state, rural development has been a partner with us and in building a stronger economy from almost scratch in Appalachia. So I look forward to continuing this partnership with you as we continue to strengthen and expand the economy of that region. I do feel some aspects of the budget request, though disappointing. The proposed termination of the guaranteed water and waste disposal loan program, coupled with a reduction in the direct water and waste disposal loans, troubling. Rural communities across the country rely on these resources to provide affordable financing for sanitary sewage and solid waste disposal. They're essential to help small communities keep their local water resources clean. In my district, we started an organization several years ago called Pride, Personal Responsibility in a Desirable Environment, mainly devoted to cleaning of water. We have things called straight pipes, a relic of a distant past, where before city water you had very little sewage. And so they let it drip out of the sink into the yard and disappear forever. Then we ran city water out there, and we now got commodes and clothes washers and dishwashers and everything else pouring through that straight pipe, now not dropping but flooding into the creeks and rivers. By satellite, we located 36,000 of them a few years ago. And through our work with Pride and a lot of the development from your agency, we've reduced the straight pipes by some 20,000. And we could not have done that without this kind of help. Now the fish are coming back to the creeks. School kids are now sampling the water so that it goes into the University of Kentucky's base statistics. And we're making vast improvements in the quality of water, but we're nowhere near the end of that. And we still need help from you in sewer and water. So I hope you can shed some light on that this morning, but more importantly, do something about it. I was also disappointed to see the administration again propose cuts to mutual and self-help housing. This year, USDA proposed a $9 million reduction. That's about a third of the amount we provided in the omnibus. As you know, this program provides low-income families a way to build their homes and provide their families with a safe place to live. Last year, as you recollect, we helped raise a wall on a self-help home in Monticello, witnessed firsthand the impact of a Southern Kentucky family putting their sweat equity into their own home, something they can be proud of now and then. And I know that you are not too happy. I would guess you're not very happy about this recommendation from the administration to cut this program. And be it noticed here that I agree with you. This is important, and this is the right way to do things. And it helps people build up their own self-esteem, which is desperately needed these days in my part of the country. So thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here with us, along with your friend, Mr. Hernandez, who's been with us all the way, and others. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask one question while I've got the mic? There's a well-documented backlog in rural water and waste applications, but that the request would reduce those levels. The 017 proposal is to decrease the direct loan level by nearly $400 million, 33%, despite the growing demand. You propose to zero out funding for guaranteed loans and reduce the grant levels. Can you explain what that's all about?
Well, thank you for giving us a chance to explain our commitment on the water side. And you're right that those are critical programs. Most of the change, you've asked about both our direct and our guaranteed program, most of the change in our direct program comes from an increase in the subsidy rate. You'll note that the budget authority is nearly parallel, and what's changed is the cost to make these loans. So the first explanation is that because it's costing us more in our subsidy rate, we're proposing fewer loans. What we are keeping is a balance between the grant and loan component of our programs. Many of the projects that you absolutely reference take a balance of both direct loan and grant. The other, the guaranteed, what we feel is that there are funds now that we can still, if you also are able to help us on the language we've asked to work in some communities over 10,000, we feel we will be able to use that. And I can also bring in our Administrator McBride to say a little more, but let us assure you that we do understand the pipeline of deals that are there. Many of them take many years to accomplish. I sat with town mayors who worked with our engineers over a 3-year period, so it's normal for us to have a pipeline. But most of the change in our direct loans starts with the change in subsidy rate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the Undersecretary mentioned, we try to keep a grant-to-loan ratio of about 70 to 30, 70% loan, 30% grant. And we work in communities. Last year, more than 85% of our funds went to communities smaller than 5,000, and more than 90% of our projects were in low to median income communities. So it's important for us to keep that grant-to-loan ratio.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to focus just for a minute on the large-scale premature exhaustion of rental assistance funds. The complete depletion of funds in the account left tenants and property owners facing difficult decisions that could have caused significant financial hardship to the owners, tenants, and compromised the financial stability of long-term viability of several affordable housing units, which is already a scarce resource. The situation was dire enough that I had to place a phone call to the Secretary of Vilsack and ask him to come up to the Hill to meet with the House and Senate appropriators to seek a short-term solution. The FY17 budget requests $1.4 billion for the rental assistance program, increase of 1%. Over the FY16 enacted level, while funding nearly 20,000 fewer contracts. Given the issues last year that we dealt with, the subcommittee has obvious concerns about the department's ability to administer the program. The FY16 omnibus provided full funding for the rental assistance program, including shortfalls in the FY year 15. My question, how does the department is the department monitoring the expenses and projected expenditures for the rental assistance program to ensure that there will not be a shortfall in FY16?
Thank you, Chairman Adderholt. First, I do need to acknowledge and thank you. Your work on this committee and your work with the Senate and with Secretary Vilsack kept vital rental assistance provided. It allowed us to make up a shortfall, correct for issues that had been building in our program. We feel that and you helped us with a change in policy so that we were able to renew our contracts. We feel that the current request of $1.4 billion is fully adequate to support rental assistance needs in the coming year. But we also feel that we've changed. We've been able, through the funds the committee provided us, we've been able to do a vital upgrade of our obligation tool. Instead of using 3-year averages statewide averages to predict the contracts for rental assistance, we now have a precise tool, which I've seen demonstrated. I think we've taken some time to demonstrate it to some of your staff, that can precisely indicate property by property the amount of rental assistance need and even the costs of those properties. As you know, what changes, it's hard to forecast. What changes is often the operating expenses on a rental property, certainly, especially since these properties are old. So this is one of the largest numbers in this budget. You're right to focus on it. Please accept our thanks for helping us solve and get over this. We feel the request is strong, and we also feel that we have strong tools now to really help us manage this at a precise level for something that does move. People change, we're 2 years in advance, but the tool is quite strong.
Can you give me some particular examples of, if you're talking about the way that you're changing some things that, in particular, that you or someone that particular things that are changing to different from the way? Yeah, it's very fair.
I'm going to bring in Administrator Hernandez here because it is his team that's worked for several years to get a tool that is quite precise, and I'd like him to describe
Yeah,
a
that would
couple
be
of
helpful.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Our major focus is always to protect the tenant. How do we make sure the tenant has a safe and decent place to live? So our challenge is how do we preserve as many properties? As you're aware, there's about 8,000 properties or contracts are maturing right now, which means their contracts will come to an end. We need to do everything we can to preserve as many of those properties so those people have a nice place to live. One of our challenges is that some of our great partners, private sector, have been in the program for 30 years. And so they want to get out of the program. So we're trying to find ways to marry up a partnership from a nonprofit or another private owner to change ownership and keep them in the program. So we are working with them to look at their contracts, facilitate transfer of ownership, provide some incentives for folks to stay there, because our focus is always on the tenant. But we're losing our properties. So we lose properties every year as people move out. So we need to find a way to begin talking about new construction a little bit, because our properties are getting less and less. We need your help on that. One more thing, Mr. Chairman, we also need your help to protect the tenants by changing a law that we proposed, is to provide vouchers for folks that are in maturing mortgages. Right now, there is no protection for them there. So in our proposal, we've asked, please give them the confidence that they have access to a voucher if that property does leave because of its maturing mortgage. Right now, they're not protected without that language.
In the, what would you say is driving really the cost for the rental assistance program overall?
Thank you for, and now having seen this up close, I would say think of two things. First of all, just broadly in the economy, costs are up to operate properties. But in our rental properties, that is particularly true about operating costs. So as costs rise, of course, generally in the economy, these properties see a particular increase, particularly around their operating costs. The other thing I'd like to signal here is that the properties are older, which is why Administrator Hernandez spoke about our interests in preservation. And when we can do upgrades to make them more fuel efficient, energy efficient, we can bring down those costs. So we have a simultaneous interest in lowering costs and making them more energy efficient. Lower costs for the employers, less rental assistance for us, for the owners. And we feel that's a strong way to manage this portfolio in the future. It's over 14,000 properties that are part of our thing, and they are essential. What I see is not only areas where land is sparse, but in areas like Chairman Farr's district, where our rental properties are serving, they're crucial to the whole workforce.
I see my time's up, Mr. Farr.
Follow up on that, Mr. Rogers' comments too about self-help housing. You know what I found, I hope you can go out and do a study on this. Nobody takes in the value of all these families coming together, spending almost a year meeting each other, going out on weekends, having picnics, helping each other. You are essentially doing something and nobody else in society does. You build the neighborhood before the housing is there. And that neighborhood is a solid neighborhood. The self-esteem kids, I would imagine the crime rate coming out of those neighborhoods is lower. What is the social value of spending that period building your house? And you know you're going to take damn good care of it. So I think if we weighed that out, it might be the most cost-effective housing in our society. I mean, even in my neighborhood, I don't know any of my neighbors because all these houses are sold to people now that don't even live in the town. They're second homes. Spend $1 million just to have a home that they come and visit for a week or two. No kids, they don't go to schools. I mean, our big fancy towns are dying because we've lost that community. So I support, as Mr. Rogers said, I think it's fairly careful. But what I don't understand, Mr. Hernandez, is we have these contracts that people got a benefit to build housing, and the condition was, okay, you're going to build this on your private dime, but you're going to get all these tax breaks, you're going to get all this. Why do we ever let them out of it?
Mr. Farr, it's like any relationship. We've signed a contract with these folks, and these folks, a lot of them are 75, 80 years old.
Yeah.
So they're coming to the end of their career in managing properties. So if they're not sending it on to their children, they'd like to get out of the business and do something else. We need to thank them. They've done great work for us.
Yes, but they're going to get out and tell the tenants that you got to get out too because we're going to now raise the rents on you.
Well, we don't think that will happen with your help because we're trying to do a transfer of ownership from somebody who wants to stay in the business. And
What are the
protect-
incentives to keep them in that? I mean, do we have to put in? I mean, here's the dilemma I have. I represent a wonderful lettuce company called Tanamir and Annal. They need farm workers. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They're now, and it's all family-owned. They're building in a little tiny community called Spreckles, which was built for Spreckles Sugars. It's a really tiny town, you know, less than 1,000 people. They're building 100 units on their own dime, designed for farm workers, single men. They're going to sleep 8 in a unit, and 2 in each of the bedrooms. This is 800 people. They're building that all on their own dime. They're not building it to get out of it somewhere else. This is always going to be there for farm workers. And they're paying them good money. They're paying them good salaries. The wages are anywhere between $12 and $22 an hour, plus benefits, retirement, Social Security, all those things. And a lot of them are undocumented. But we need that workforce, and we need it to be stabilized there. On the other hand, we're trying to give incentives to the private sector to go out and build housing to rent to the rest of the public. Last Sunday, I was with Rick Annal, and he told me that the housing authority down the street is building, you know, other housing. Their cost, when they get all of these different layered of monies that you have to borrow from all these different consortiums in order to build housing, ends up being $200,000 a unit. He said, we could never, you know, we're doing all this on our own dime, and we're doing it for way, way less than that. And they're not asking for any money from the government. They're just doing this because they need a stable workforce. So how do we combine one where we're trying to, our communities are trying to insist, if you're going to have a business and you're going to have a lot of people commuting in, clogging up our roads, why not you build? I mean, I represent Big Sur too, and you have the Post Ranch down there, costs $800 a room down there, $1,000 a room, and it's filled all the time, so people, you know, money isn't an object. They only could build 40 units, which no big chain wanted. They had to build units for all of their workers, because the county didn't want them running up and down the highway, which is clogging all the traffic. So how do we shift this? We've got one side, private sector, having to put in all their money to build housing for their workforce with no financial benefit, from no tax benefit or no grants from USDA. On the other hand, the programs we have end up being so damn expensive to build and rent, and then we can't hold on to them because the contracts run out. Can't we use our market tools more effectively to get a better bang for the buck and bring it in at less cost?
Well, Mr. Farr, we can build on the success we have. Congress has been very good to give us some nice tools. One of the tools they've given us is the tax credit tool. We use tax credits to provide the incentive for the private market to come and invest in our properties. They're owned by the private sector or nonprofits. That's the nice thing about it. We urge you providing the right environments for the private sector to invest. As you and I have talked, use of 4% or 9% tax credits can be both an incentive, or if you don't have access to 9%, it's a disincentive. So we're very fortunate to have that kind of a tool. We could always use more of those tools to help people get the private sector to invest more. So we're going to keep working that way with you to keep people in the program if they want to stay, if not, to facilitate the transfer to those folks who want to stay in the program.
So we should increase the tax credit.
And can I just add back to our budget, there are the 515 levels, the 538 of our guaranteed multifamily housing is where we do some new construction. And frankly, this is why the rental assistance number is also vital to us. This is the way we will incent when we transfer a property and when we bring in a powerful nonprofit that wants to take over, and they're there, they exist in rural America. It's having sufficient rental assistance that will. So these numbers that you are seeing before you today aren't just numbers. They're really the future of this. We do appreciate them, and thank you for your comments and the chairman's comments about self-help. We do love these. We love this program, and these are the building blocks that we would like to see supported, and we appreciate your support on these.
Mr. Valdeo.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Undersecretary and guests, for your time today. As the most populous state in the nation, California has over 38.5 million residents. This is over 11 million more than the next most populous state, Texas. Population of the states combined with the large size of California's counties and the number of prisons in my district has disqualified many of the cities and communities in my district. When applying for rural development loans, grants, and programs, for example, Kings County is roughly the size of Rhode Island and has a population of just over 150,000. Yet many cities and towns in Kings County are rural and face the same challenges as those of rural areas in other states. The rural definition cutoff for cities set at 10,000 and 20,000 are too low for many rural cities in my district to qualify, especially if a prison population is counted. And we did play a little bit of a role in some of those grants, but the prison population does affect a lot of my smallest communities. Are you aware of the problems faced by many rural cities trying to qualify for rural development programs in more populated states? And do you have a plan to ensure that these cities are not unfairly disqualified from receiving the loan and grant money that they should be able to receive? And is there anything I can do to help you understand the nature of my district and to ensure some of these problems are taken care of without detrimentally impacting all other small communities?
Congressman Valdeo, thank you for your question and your point. Can I just be a little more precise? The 10,000 and 20,000 population limits, are you speaking primarily about our housing programs or our water programs?
It's probably going to be a combination of many of those, because I have a few that are smaller that are looking for build police stations in their small towns, and we've had a little of everything.
So on the police station one, or anything what we call essential community facilities, it's quite a powerful program, but boy, is that a bright line around 20,000. And I would be happy to take a look again at anything off the record that is, we'll work with you, but boy, is that set by our authorizers for our community facilities. 10,000 is often a level in our water programs. And again, I don't know if that's what you're speaking to here. Now, in Mr. Rikkers' programs, of many of the business programs, some of them, like our B&I guarantee, do go up to communities of 50,000. So there I know we can help you in some of our areas. What we are often doing in our programs is working right in those communities. The fact that I have California staff is really a help, because they're often active, even in places where we can't be. Our engineers, they're connectors, they're people. I think of our circuit rider program, trying to help even in areas where the population caps are solid. But we do have to follow statute in those things, so until those are changed.
Okay, and on another topic, precision farming and GPS systems are being utilized more and more by farmers as a way to efficiently and effectively manage their farm operations. Data information such as crop yields, fertility, health, maturity, water usage, and many other factors can now be collected in the fields and transmitted by cellular or broadband networks to the farmer using wireless devices. This technology has allowed farmers to increase yield and conserve resources such as fertilizer, seed, pesticides, and most importantly for my district, water. As I mentioned in an earlier hearing this year, the use of these technologies has also been expanded by USDA inspection agencies such as SIS. The proper use of these technologies requires reliable and affordable networks. I'd like to hear more about the growth of these technologies, where you see rural broadband in the next 5 years, and how you are managing the budget to ensure reliable networks are available in rural areas to support both farming activities and daily life of people in those rural communities.
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. It's probably the area that I've heard the most about since becoming Undersecretary, and you've put your finger on the two areas. Broadband is both a business need, a growth need, a competitive need, and it's a quality of life need. Anybody that raises a child knows that you can't be part of this system, you can't learn. So those two needs, quality of life and frankly for economic growth, are why I'm proud of the efforts of our team. This week I met with, or last week I met with over 90 members of our All Hands, our telecom program that serves under Administrator McBride, and the focus of that time was customer service. We are running one of the programs in America that is so strong on getting facilities out, getting our programs out, and I'm proud of those. We're proud that we have a broadband program, because as you were saying, it's critical for both of those things. The 5-year look forward, I know we'll need more. But other than more specific, do you have a more precise?
No, just wanted to make sure you understand the importance of it and how much of a role it plays for a lot of our small towns. I'm obviously, like I said, from a very populous state, but the area that I represent is very rural, and so even cell phone service in some parts of the district is difficult. So something that's important to us, and I think my time is up. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I comment on that? Sure. I share this in a lot of our towns because we have in our zoning, we don't allow housing to be built on the ag lands. So unlike the Midwest where you have little farms pockmarked all over the land, we require people to be in the communities, and then they commute out to the fields in the day and so on. But where we're not taking advantage is we have a lot of other federal monies that are going to the rural areas, the highway program, a lot of federal installations, military, communication. Why don't we leverage that if those are our federal partners, using the entire federal family to say, okay, this is an area, and mine is the same way. Without that broadband, we cannot survive. We cannot progress. And there's just not enough money in the pot to do it. So why don't we leverage the rest of the federal family that's out there and figure out how we can condition any kind of that expenditure for getting that broadband in built.
It's an important point about how to leverage the rest of the federal. I've had the honor to serve on the President's Broadband Opportunity Council to help co-chair that. And that, in fact, was the challenge that the President put to us. In a time without new federal funds, how could you leverage each other better? What could you put on each other's installation? Could cell towers be on each other's, what could you do? Could you do more with your current authority? So that conversation is underway. It is and an important one. I still appreciate being able to, have broadband funds in our own work, but I will say the leverage question continues.
Mr. Bishop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and let me welcome Ms. Mensah and all of your associates to the committee. First off, I was very pleased that the department has moved ahead to fill our state's Rural Development Director position. I think within the department it's been announced that Jill Stuckey will get that position, and of course I've known her for decades, and in fact we were with her this past weekend down at the Carter Childhood Home and Farm. So thank you for that, and we look forward to her tenure, although it pretends to be a short tenure, being very productive. Let me go to the Community Facilities Loans and Grant Program. I noticed with some concern that your FY17 request for the Community Facilities Program is $37 million, or 12.3% less than the 16 enacted level. And I also see that you have some $44 million in unobligated balances and recoveries spanning the last 3 fiscal years, which raises a couple of concerns for me, and I'm sure for many of my colleagues as well. The Community Facilities Program, both loans and grants, is one of the most popular programs which rural development operates, particularly in our district. And I can't tell you how many organizations, cities, and counties have come to rely on that program over the years. So can you tell us why we're not able to fully obligate the new funding that we give every year? And secondly, why aren't we getting those unobligated funds which are available back into circulation? Of the $44 million in obligated balances, can you tell me how much of those funds are made up of grants? And of course, grant money is highly sought after, particularly in some of our poor rural communities and counties.
Thank you, Congressman Bishop. And I may ask for some support from our budget director, but let me distinguish what I think our community facilities program level, the $2.2 billion that this committee appropriated to us, and the budget authority. In my time here, I've seen the program vastly expand from what it was, a $300 million program just a few short years ago, to a $2.2 billion program. All the time our staff was down by 20%. But we've made huge gains. From running a $300 million program, we ran a $1.8 billion program. We saw more hospitals, schools, clinics, health clinics, constructed in rural America, and those deals have flowed in. We've sought private partners. So I'm pleased that we've been able to reach the 1.8 level last year. And we have many activities underway to expend those funds this year, including new partnerships with the private sector and private entities. The community facilities grants, it is my understanding that we do not leave those behind. Those grants are highly sought over. Those are, I can ask Budget Director Young, but we did not leave unobligated a single grant dollar in my experience for FY15. I think what you may be referring to are our program level, which was $500 million unspent, but we are looking forward to acknowledge it. Can I ask Director Young to add any details on that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bishop. It looks like the very largest part of that carryover balance was from the Guaranteed Community Facility Loan Program. That would be the budget subsidy
Was
for
that because you couldn't get the local lenders to participate in the guarantee program?
I'll ask Mr. Hernandez to speak to that. And if we don't know it, we'll come back to you.
We may want to get some additional information for you, but it's important to have the private sector doing both guarantee. Usually our projects have both a guaranteed loan and a direct on it. Because ours are for the 40 years, where the guaranteed loan usually is a shorter term. So that's how we do the partnership.
Okay, thank you. Let me move quickly. My time is about to expire. The self-help grants mutual. In 17, you request 18.5 million, which is 33% less than the 16 enacted level of 27 million. And you've got unobligated balances of over 36 million from 16, 15, and 14. And of course, I've got 26 rural counties in my district which could use all of that 36 million, which is unobligated. Is it a communication issue? Are folks not applying for the grants? Is the process so complicated and convoluted that it discourages people? What is the problem? What's the issue? And if there are challenges in getting the funds out, do you have any recommendations to modify, improve the program delivery so that we can really arm our disadvantaged citizens who are economically disadvantaged?
Congressman, I'm going to get you a precise answer for the record on any question of unobligated balance, but let me say for the record that the self-help program has great success working with nonprofit partners on this, and I'm just not aware of the unobligated balance question. Right now, we continue to see great demand for that program. So, let me get you a precise answer.
Thank you. I know that's great demand. The problem is the demand is not being met. People are saying we just can't get the loan.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to associate myself with the comments of my colleagues regarding the value of rural broadband, and I appreciate your comments. And I think we all recognize the economic opportunity that provides for many of our underserved areas that are just not connected as well. And so I think my colleagues have articulated that. I'd like to concur with those thoughts. In terms of how we fund those broadband expansions and developments in our country, I note that the budget does not include funding for direct broadband loans in 2017. And instead proposes, quote, a rewrite of the regulations to the traditional telecommunications loan program to allow applicants that would have been eligible for the broadband program to be eligible for this program. And so I thought maybe you could describe how that further helps our constituents, the advantage of that, how that works, moving from loans more towards grants is how I would understand that. Why is that change needed? How does it help? And how does it affect the cost of these programs long term? And has this been vetted with stakeholders? Are the folks that are responsible for all this, is this being done in concert, or where is all this coming from?
Thank you, Congressman, and I will ask Administrator McBride to give some more details here. But our view has been that we are so oversubscribed in our broadband programs. We work on them every day. We know how popular and how important they are. But by focusing on the grants, two of them are here, the Community Connect program and the distance learning and telemedicine. We're taking broadband to some of the hardest areas to serve and some of the poorest. So we're prioritizing areas with the most need, where the markets just can't reach. That's been our priority. That's been what you see reflected in this request. And it has been a tough budgetary climate to make this. To your point about can you repeat your point about the change? Why we did a change?
Well, I think you're just moving the program into I think the it was a rewrite of the regulations to the traditional telecommunications loan program to allow applicants that would have been eligible for broadband to be eligible for that program. So I'm just trying to understand what that change actually means. And then the way I would understand that is we'd be moving away from loans and more towards grant programs. And how does that affect our budgetary projections going forward if we're changing that from a loan to a grant?
Okay, so I've spoken to the change of loan to grant, and that was an effort of us to get, but I will ask Administrator McBride to speak to the change in regulation that you cited.
So we have two loan programs that support broadband infrastructure. The first is the Farm Bill loan program, and then you're referencing the traditional infrastructure. We need to update all of our regs. Last year, as part of some of the direction that we got from Congress in the 2014 Farm Bill, we worked to update the Farm Bill loan program reg, and this year we were looking to update the reg for the traditional infrastructure program.
And how's that change our budget projections long term? So is it moving from more loans to grants?
What we've proposed this year is to put additional funding into Community Connect, which is a grant program that funds projects in areas that do not have broadband service. The changes that we will make to the traditional infrastructure loan program, those regs, there shouldn't be a large budgetary impact on that.
Okay. Wanted to discuss the housing issues that were brought up earlier. You were talking about the 515, I think the 538 programs. I've noted that over the next several years, most of the Section 515 loans will mature, and I wondered if we're prepared for that. Obviously, the rental folks aren't eligible. Rental assistance is limited to tenants living in projects financed with 514 or 515. What steps are we taking to address this issue, and is there a long-term plan to ensure that we continue to have this availability for low-income and elderly constituents?
Congressman, we're acutely aware of the maturing mortgage issue. Administrator Hernandez spoke somewhat to that earlier, and we're using all tools at our disposal. He put the hardest one, which is new construction. Administrator Hernandez also spoke to the tool we're using about how to help owners who wish to transfer their properties by stretching their mortgages, but also helping them work to transfer. That's one of our big authorities that we can use. Some of this does not have a budgetary impact, but as I spoke to, rental assistance is key to keeping these properties in. Our commitment is high to the tenants of rural America. We want to protect them, and this is a problem we're acutely aware of. We've been working on our own effort to publicize this, to study, to work closely with our stakeholder groups, and every stakeholder group that I address understands these 14,000 properties, what it means, what their retention will mean. So this is an issue that's close, and we do focus on it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here today and for your previous testimony. Always really great to hear about the work you're doing, and we so deeply appreciate rural development in a state like Maine, which is such a rural state. I want to start with value-added producer grants. That's just been such a beneficial program. We're very grateful for it. It's done a lot of, it's made it possible for a lot of opportunities in our local and regional food systems in Maine. We're a little disappointed to see that it's level funding this year at $11 million. I hope the committee decides that we should have more in that particular account. But an issue that I brought up previously with Secretary Vilsack, the notice of funding availability isn't out. It is important to our farmers who, as you know, are starting to get busy as the spring comes on, and they want to apply for these grants, but it's just the timing of it hasn't been good. So just quickly, do you know when that's going to be out, and is there a way so that the process just kind of gets on a track so it's always out in December or January?
To the first part of that question, thank you for your emphasis on value-added producer grant. We were hoping to have it out by the time we got to this hearing. We're close.
I'm sure you were.
We're very close. And so to the second part about the future and about how we can manage these funds in the future, again, we understand how important this is. I will ask Administrator Rikkers to speak to a little bit about what we are trying to do to manage this authority that we have that is very popular.
Great.
Congressman Pingree to the committee, let me echo Undersecretary Mensah's gratitude for your support for the program. We concur in the productivity and the value of this program's ability to help farmers and producers and ranchers open up new markets. We succeeded in incorporating priorities to new and beginning farmers and to veteran farmers.
That's great.
In a new regulation that was published last year. Directly to your question about getting the notice out, we expect that the notice will be out at the end of this month or in the very beginning of next month. That is not good enough, but it improves on last year when the notice came out in May. Last year, the notice came out in May, and applicants only had 45 days to put together applications, which A, was really short, and B, happened right during the beginning of their full season. Now, by getting it out around the beginning of April, they will have time before the heavy season begins, and they'll have a full 90-day window to put together those applications. So we expect this year to be better, and we'll work for FY17 to get that notice out even sooner.
Great. Well, as long as we can keep creeping it up, it'd be good to have it much earlier than that. And again, I do think it's a critically important program. It's made it possible for so many small and medium-sized farmers to, as you say, get into new markets. There are just such great opportunities out there, and often they just need a little bit of assistance. So this second question is about REAP. Again, thank you to the Undersecretary for mentioning one of the grants that went to the Greater Portland Council of Governments, and that's a grant to start a program that helps agricultural producers and rural small businesses to evaluate the potential to incorporate renewable energy technologies into their operations. And again, we know this is so beneficial in many ways. It can be a real cost saver for them. It creates new opportunities. And I'm interested in it because the USDA and the EPA have agreed on a food waste reduction goal. I'm working on a bill around food waste reduction, and that is just such a critically important issue when we waste 40% of the food in this country, and it could go to people who need that food. It's a cost to farmers. It's a cost to retail operations. It's a big challenge all around. So one of the questions I'm interested in is about REAP. Do you have any plans to expand REAP? I know your funding level this year is significantly higher, up to $91 million, which I'm very happy to see, and I hope that becomes available. But I'm thinking about how REAP could be used for some of this, and particularly I'm interested in anaerobic digesters that are available to convert food waste into energy. Do you have any projects? Will that be a possibility under this program? And other things that might be incorporated in this program to help reduce and mitigate food waste.
Thank you for your interest, and I share with you, I saw my first food waste in Maine, actually, with Maine Biofuels,
right.
which was a
great
powerful program to show what could be done with food waste to create energy, and the young team there, that's just a brilliant team. So I'm pleased that we're involved in this. REAP grants and loans can be part of that. They're the twin things of both energy efficiency and cost reductions at a business level, so it's exciting. But we also have some new authorities that we've been working on. We saw with Administrator Rikkers in Oregon a new biodigester under our 9003 program, which is another program that we administer, which was just recently reestablished, and that is another authority that we're using to tap these kind of food waste. In the Oregon case, we were using potato waste and onion waste and producing both natural gas and fertilizer. So this is a strong time. The Farm Bill gave us some new authorities. This is a strong time for our budget. So I think both in our REAP programs and in this other than 9003, you should see more activity. This is rural America's big competitive advantage. So we
Great.
look forward to seeing more of this.
I'm out of time, but I'll look forward to following up with you on that, and I'd be interested to hear more about the project in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Undersecretary. Thank you very much. I just want to talk a little bit about the Rural Economic Development Grant Program. It's very important to my district, the 3rd District of Iowa, especially when agriculture income was down about a third last year. And so any help that can be given and earned through an application process, that's great leverage. Also used with corporate investment and to execute community improvement projects. According to the USDA, Rural Economic Development and Grant Program applicants are typically notified of your agency's decision the month following that in which they submitted their application. Iowa has several outstanding applications, and I just ask that you give some people certainty when it comes to these things, because if it's not an option with a rural development grant, then so they can pursue other options as well. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, would ask you for help on that. And then I want to just echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues on the rural development rental program. My colleague, Mr. Farr, the ranking member, it's very important to low-income Iowans. There have been concerns raised about the USDA's ability to accurately estimate rental assistance needs, as you know, which has led to shortfalls within the program. Some advocates have said it would be helpful to have a tiered rent subsidy system similar to housing programs offered through HUD. What would the advantages or disadvantages of such a system be like that? Just get your thoughts on that.
And I will ask Administrator Hernandez to give you more thoughts on the tiered rent. What I do want to speak to again, though, is the new tool that our group is now using to be much more precise in our estimates of the need for rental assistance, property by property. Prior to last year, we were using a statewide average, 3-year averages in the state. Now we're able to really estimate property by property. And so with the committee's help, are ready to give us a full complement in 2016 and the proposed level in 2017, we feel that we will not have those shortfalls that you experienced in your state, and we're very, very pleased. About the tiered rent, I will ask Administrator Hernandez to speak to that.
Thank you, Congressman Young. Our goal all the time is to protect the tenant. What's nice about our program compared to any other agency is that we really manage the rents in a way. We keep the rents low to make it more affordable. That's why we don't do tiered rents. Part of it is to make sure, how do we make sure the tenant's only paying what they need to pay, which is 30% of their income. And then we know the expenses in the property, as the Undersecretary talked about. We are more aware now than ever before what the true expenses of managing that property. But we control the rents. We manage the rents to keep them as low as possible so we put less burden. We do have a lot of tenants that are overburdened still. They will pay more because they're trying to make sure they can stay in those properties. So we need help to make sure we have rental assistance, which we're very confident we have enough of, but we need a way to actually address long-term new construction, both from our 5-8 program and any other way we can get new construction. That's what people need, is more rental assistance with new properties.
Well, as you know, many property owners in Iowa and other states, they're unwilling to kick out somebody who doesn't have the means, or elderly, or maybe have a disability, and they want that flexibility. Maybe is there some direction that you? What kind of flexibility do you have, or do the property owners have, to ensure a tenant is not kicked out?
I think you're referring to last year when we had a policy against re-renewing the rental contracts in the same 12-month period. That has now changed, and we appreciate the support of this committee. So we do not have owners that are having to displace anybody. You met the obligations, you helped us catch up on back, and now we have a tool. So we feel that this is going to be a better managed portfolio, and we appreciate the committee's work in the past on the 2016, and what we're proposing in 2017 we feel is strong, so that we will not have to kick out anyone. We will.
Okay, I have a feeling while I was in and out of meetings with constituents, there were some further conversations on this, so I would love to schedule time to sit down with you and just go over this. And so thank you very much for your work. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Young. The FY17 budget requests to expand the use of funds under the electric loan program to enable renewable generation in rural areas to support clean energy goals. The proposal would permit the finance of renewable energy generation from renewable energy resources, including wind, solar, hydropower, and biomass. This is a significant expansion that has drawn some criticism. Can you explain in a little bit more detail what this proposal does and why it is being requested? And is there a known market or demand for renewable energy generation across the country, or would the proposal just be to serve a few particular regions of the country?
Congressman, I want to make sure we've got the correct program that you're referring to. Is this the, which program is this? The renewable?
Yeah, the electric loan program, the rural electrification.
Our main program, yeah. Let me ask Administrator McBride to speak to this issue of our renewable technologies.
One of the issues that was raised earlier was the various rural definitions that we have. And in the rural electric program, we have a population cap of 20,000. So every time a new applicant comes in, a co-op comes in with a proposal for a project, we do a rurality determination. That's our first step. What we've requested here is a little flexibility to develop the energy in a rural area. The project is located in a rural area, but if the co-op now serves a slightly larger area, over 20,000, give us the flexibility to work with them on that project. So our intent is to keep a tight rural focus on the program, but to have some flexibility in case a co-op serves an area that slightly exceeds our population cap.
Would the number of loans underwritten remain proportionate to the corresponding loan authority levels? For example, would these loans be more costly?
I don't believe that they would. No, sir.
Also, the budget requests $11 million in budget authority for the cost of loan modifications. As I understand, this would enable current borrowers to refinance at lower rates. If budget authority is provided, can you give us an idea of how many loans the agency would expect to refinance?
That authority is requested in our telecom program. We've had a few rural telecoms come in with an interest in refinancing, which is not an authority that we have in our traditional infrastructure loan program. My best estimate right now would be 2 to 3 loans that we could refinance through that.
Last month, the Secretary hinted that in his testimony that the idea of packaging a portion of the USDA's water and waste disposal loans and selling off to investors to attract private sector to the market. While the details about this possible action are scant, I believe it is safe to say that our immediate concern would be the likely impact of USDA selling these higher performing loans to the private sector and possibly selling them at a discount, all in an attempt to attract outside investors. If the higher performing loans exist, if the higher performing loans leave the USDA portfolio, you may be left with a lesser performing portfolio and greater exposure. Can you provide some details about the possible portfolio sale?
Let me begin by saying that, as our Secretary testified, the interest of this department and of this president is always in encouraging partnerships. And of course, we understand that the needs for investment in infrastructure exceed what government can provide. We do understand that. And so we have a deep interest in finding private partners. That said, one of the efforts has been to look at seeing if we can share participation in our deals. These discussions are still underway. There's not a formal proposal. There's not a formal at all proposal for selling, but we are in the process of investigating whether we could share in participation with the private sector as a way of encouraging them. We will, of course, keep this committee appraised of any future directions. We consider having a high-quality portfolio that we both service one of our highest priorities. So we share your priority of high service and high quality to our borrowers and making no change to that.
Does the department have the authority to take this action?
What I do not believe, without talking to you, we wouldn't do anything. Right now, we are just in the process of considering a participation.
Or?
Chairman, so I listen to this hearing, I'm concerned because we pointed out that sort of rural America is melting. People are leaving. And we have all these programs to try to build infrastructure and sustain people there. And it seems like it's not working. And kind of the answers you're giving are, well, we got a lot of good programs and we're doing good things, but I don't think we've suggested that what it's going to take to change this out-migration. And I'm wondering, I mean, I'm keen on this broadband. I think when I first got on the committee, I didn't pay much attention to it, didn't think it was that important. But as Mr. Valadeo said, it's just farming practices are just totally reliant on that kind of a communication, and particularly all that produce that's coming out of rural area trying to get into national and world markets. And actually even stay in the local market, as Shelley Pingree's talked about so much. So I'm interested on, you said that of the two broadband programs, you have a loan program and a grant program. You also stated they're oversubscribed. By how much?
I think we'd have to get back to you for precise, but there's always, these are high demand.
Well, just guess.
Have a
How much
precise-
money, if you could fund those, what
if we
would you
could
need?
fund.
For the Farm Bill loan program, we received about twice as many dollars in terms of application as we had in program level. And for Community Connect, which is the grant program we've requested an increase for, we received over 60 applications last year, and we were able to fund 5.
Well, then why? Why aren't you just using all of your energy to come here and ask for some more money? If this is the infrastructure of rural America, why are you so satisfied with just pittance?
I can say that we understand the huge need. This was a tough budget
But you're the
for us.
advocates, you're the lobbyists for
You're
that
right,
need.
you're right. So what we are asking for is to ask us for the hardest money. We've asked you for the hardest money, and it is not sufficient. It
You've
is not
asked for
sufficient.
so little. It's like, do you know how much you've asked for?
We asked for 20,
$9
million
million,
in our
$120,000. That's just, how much, when you came to my area, we're talking about Highway 101, the internet, state, federal highway, one of the oldest highways in the West.
one of the most traveled, and your people
Most
said
traveled,
we need
and
$15
we have
million.
all these people that were gonna benefit from it. And we could just do so much good, and how much was it?
15 million they asked
And what's
for.
the cap on your grants?
The grants are, there's usually in the neighborhood of $3 million.
$3 million. And you've only, and that's just one program in one place that certainly needs it and ought to go to the top of the list. And that's 15 million out of 37 million total. That's half. I mean, from one program. We're not going to get there from here. You've got to become more of a staunch advocate for this, from the White House to OMB to particularly here.
I take the chiding. I would love to be a strong advocate
Well,
for
let's
this.
get it. I mean, what is it going to take to fund these programs? Because you heard the merits, and after it was, well, if we had the money, we'd love to help you, but we don't have the money. Well, let's get the money. That's what what we're here for. Particularly in light of the fact that the importance of rural America.
Well, you are correct. You put it about, you started your comment with the melting. And I agree that these are the things, our investments in broadband, the way we do food systems, the way we keep our renewable, those are the things that are going to make the big change, that and the core infrastructure needs. But
Well, nobody's going to hear it in the din of this place unless you folks that are professionals in this and understand the extent of the problem really articulate it. I think even in the rural areas, they can't articulate it in the big picture. They come to you and articulate it, but you're not passing on that passion and those cries. And just one last comment. Why does it take, if you're running the same program that Mrs. Pingree talked about, year after year, why does it take so long to put out a notice? Should take more than a week. Social Security, anytime there's a change or tweak in there, man, you get it in the mail right like that.
Congressman Farr, there's a delay each year when a budget is
Why?
assigned until OMB gets the money. OMB then puts it in our accounts, and we can get it in to different accounts. There are policy decisions.
We
for instance-
passed that budget last December, the omnibus. When is that when it was, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
And you haven't put out the notices yet?
We are. The notice will be out by the end of the month, if not then.
What's at the end of the month? This is 4 months since we passed it.
I agree, and we will strive to get it out a lot earlier next year. This year was still too delayed. It was an improvement from last year, but it needs to be out sooner. You're right.
Well, yeah, as I said, I won't be around next year, so it's just, this is the kind of bureaucracy, I think about this country. Because whatever we've done in government, and, on either side of the aisle, the public out there doesn't trust government. Look at the way they're voting. They want to elect a person president of the United States who's never been elected to anything in his life and does nothing but condemn government. And they think he's a hero. So what's going on in this country? That's lots of people. And we're all, you know, we haven't done a very good job in politics of selling how damn good we are and how honest we are and how attentive we are to people's issues. They don't get it. They don't understand it.
No, it's a fair
And
concern.
this program, rural USDA, is it. You know, the Defense Department doesn't hit all these people around the like this does. No other program hits as many people in America as this program when you think of all the food coming from rural America. So I want you guys to be, you got to be warriors about the need to pay attention to rural issues.
Thank you very much. I've got a couple of energy-related questions. With RUS regarding our EMCs, I've had several complaints over the past couple of years regarding transparency in our EMCs, and that rural members of our EMCs, at least in Georgia, don't fully understand how their EMCs operate, what the management structure is, or who makes the management decisions, how they decide the rate structure, and quite frankly, what rights the individual members of the EMCs have within their cooperative. It appears that there's a lack of transparency in this area, and most are not subject to regulation or oversight by state public service commissions. At least in Georgia, it appears that way. Your budget includes $6.5 billion in electricity-related loans and activities. How can we get a better handle on how our cooperatives operate and improve the transparency of their local operations? We have a lot of farmers that are complaining about drastic spikes in their rates with EMCs for their irrigation, and we have some of our low-income ratepayers that are on fixed income, and they're complaining about it, and they don't seem to be able to get any explanation from the EMCs themselves. It's not all of them, but there are some, and they feel particularly aggrieved. And the second question has to do with the Virgin Islands. As you know, for several years I've been concerned about the energy challenges facing the U.S. Virgin Islands. And our former colleague, Delegate Donna Christensen, and now successor, Stacy Plaskett, continue to be concerned about the energy situation that the Virgin Islands are facing. Can you give us an update on rural development's energy activities in the Virgin Islands and what's happening currently, and if there are any further plans that you have in that area? So those are my two questions.
Thank you, Congressman Bishop. Why don't I start with the quick response on the Virgin Islands, and I'll ask Administrator McBride to speak to the rural cooperative performance and your concerns with transparency. First, in the Virgin Islands, I had the pleasure of meeting with Representative Plaskett and connecting her again with our rural development staff. That office, those islands are served by our Florida office. And while it is always a challenge to stretch our resources in areas where we have 3 staff members in the Virgin Islands, we committed to work with her, to do a trip with her, and to relook at what could be done. She had, but you're right about the energy challenges being significant, and we look forward to having some of our programs to see if we can have some stronger applications from them. And I can be happy to get back to your island. Appreciate your concern. These are areas that need our support. I will ask Administrator McBride to speak to the concerns around transparencies in our rural cooperatives.
Thank you for the question, Congressman. From time to time, we hear from constituents that have different issues with their co-ops, and we're happy to play a role in improving communication. We have a great state staff, as you're aware, and RUS also has a field staff that is in close contact with all of our borrowers. So I'm happy to follow up with you if there are specific issues that have been raised with you, and we can follow up with our borrowers.
I appreciate that. We've tried to work it through our legislative delegation to the Georgia General Assembly. We've gone through the Public Service Commission. We've gone to EMCs directly, and there just seems to be a disconnect. And there's a problem, and we can't quite get a handle on it, and I certainly would appreciate any assistance that we can get from you. and how we can ensure more transparency.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to ask you a question about the Healthy Food Financing Initiative. So that was authorized in the 2014 Farm Bill, and its role is to increase access to fresh food outlets. It's a great program as far as I've been able to witness, and in this particular request, it would be funded at $1 million. It hasn't previously been funded through the USDA, but funds have been made available through other entities. Maine is one of the states that's had an opportunity to receive some of the funding. Actually, it came through Coastal Enterprises Institute, which I know the Undersecretary knows their organization. They were able to fund a project with the Northern Girl Food Hub. This is a project that has about 5,000 square foot facility and is very good at aggregating food from a variety of farms around the state, and provides a critical kind of need in the infrastructure that's been missing in our state and many others. So I guess my question is, I certainly would support the President's request of $1 million into this fund. If you're able to receive that, can you give me a little bit of an update about what the USDA will do with the funding, and how would you be providing technical assistance, financial assistance if you receive it, which we certainly hope you do?
Thank you, Congresswoman. This healthy food financing, our $1 million request, is to allow us to get moving with our partners at Treasury and HHS. This would allow us to help stand up the first fund manager and to take our expertise as an agency, which is really lending. What we know about healthy food is that it takes strong financial partners. It's not just about the food, it's about who aggregates it, as you wrote, a 5,000 square foot partner to aggregate. It's the shopping, it's the stores who need to put in upgrades. All those are actually financing needs. They're not just about the producer side. And this is where we have expertise. This is why we feel that rural development should be part of this. These are our partners who know how to finance, who know how to get close to the ground in rural America. So with your support of this, what we hope to do is to move forward. Also, by establishing a national fund manager, we would have the opportunity to start raising private funds. So all of this, and it is a much reduced request from our request in 16, would help us get moving and help us play a strong role in partnership with our other federal agencies in important work for rural development.
Great. Well, I will certainly continue to support that you receive that funding. I think USDA is a player that should be at the table, and I appreciate that we could have the opportunity to bring your expertise there, and also that you're willing to look at some private funding as well, because that would be a great asset. And I think no matter who you talk to about some of the challenges that beginning farmers, that farmers with new markets are facing, this could help meet some of those needs. Just a little bit about distance learning and telemedicine. I'm a big supporter of that, and the grants have been available through the program have been extremely helpful to healthcare providers, to teachers, again, since I represent such a rural state. And I happen to live myself in one of Maine's 14 year-round island communities, and you can't get much more rural than a place where you have to take a ferry to get there. Telemedicine has been enormously helpful. Some of the grants have been used for people who are able to work with homebound patients. It's a really critical way to help support the infrastructure of medicine. And also distance learning has allowed a lot of people in rural areas who can't get to a college or can't get to a facility, but can actually continue to upgrade their education and expand their learning opportunities. So it's critically important. Maine has done really well at receiving some of the grants in this, and again, I think it's been very beneficial to some of the growth we have in our rural economy. We've been fortunate sometimes to have the reverse happening, where young farmers want to move back to our state, and people want to move their families to rural communities. They like the education, the safety, the sense of community. So these are the kinds of critical things that seem to be very helpful. I'm very happy to see a potential increase in the budget, and I'm just interested to see what the USDA has done to look at a little bit about the success of the projects that have been funded. Are there opportunities to encourage some dissemination of best practices or lessons learned, or how can we expand these opportunities so more communities take advantage of it?
Thank you for giving me a chance to say a little more about this really important grant. And what I saw with my own eyes is how revolutionary this can be in rural community. It is transforming healthcare, not just the hands-on kind of, getting an ear exam, but this is also post-traumatic stress disorder. This is psychiatric counseling. This is all kinds of things. So we are promoting this. You'll see most of our blogs, but more importantly, our partners are promoting this. And this is work that needs grants in many cases to succeed. So thus you have our increase in grant request. So I think the sharing of knowledge across rural areas is always challenging, but that's what the information age is really about, getting this out. And if we are able to increase these grants, this will be an important piece of rural America's success in distance and telemedicine.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Ms. Pingree. Let me revert back to the water and waste portfolio sale for just a minute. While it's my understanding this could open the loan market to areas with slightly larger populations, my understanding 10, 25,000, as those populations would likely be more attractive to private financing, how do you ensure that those areas with smaller populations still get assistance at reasonable terms while not exposing the taxpayer to potential high cost with the higher performing loans being sold off?
Are you speaking about the guaranteed water
The
proposal?
water and waste portfolio that I'd asked about in my earlier question.
Or is this the one about the potential asset sale?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to again say that there is no sale. So we are what we are, and our great interest here as an agency is, yes, attracting other investors to rural America in the places we can't reach. Communities above 10,000 we are unable to serve. So we do look forward to seeing other investors. It's why we had some White House conferences on attracting rural investors in infrastructure. But it is our intention to continue a strong program in our direct water loans, and I can assure you that we will continue to keep this committee informed if there are any changes to this program.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, the Secretary had hinted the idea of packaging part of this and to selling off to investors, and that's why I wanted to ask you about that. Skipping on to there was a recent GAO report that spoke of collaboration between USDA and EPA to promote ways rural water utilities could better manage their infrastructure, including the use of asset management to ensure long-term technical and financial capacity. The benefits of incorporating asset management are well documented, and the report recognizes the challenges rural utilities face, primarily startup costs and human resources to implement asset management. USDA has the current tools to assist rural communities to protect and preserve investments in infrastructures, primarily through popular technical assistance grants and circuit rider programs. I'm sure the USDA recognizes the importance of preserving and maintaining these systems. Does the department see the benefits of the technical assistance of the grants circuit rider program?
Absolutely, Congressman. I think that's one of the strongest pieces of running. We're not just sitting back as financiers to a program. With your help, we've been able to support circuit riders, and this is one of the key programs. It means that people are there in emergencies. You get technical support all through the year. I've met some of these circuit riders. I'm proud of the work. I'm proud of our close relationship with the Rural Water Association. This is what makes this program strong. It's having people who are there in emergencies, in times of expansion. So we definitely see the importance.
Are there any issues that with the program that the subcommittee needs to be aware of that you can think of off the?
I'm not aware of any.
Sir.
Despite the program's popularity and success, why does the budget seek a reduction in funds and in lieu request resources to start a new program that's, quite honestly, it's unproven?
Which new program are you speaking to?
With the water and waste asset management.
Any diminution of these programs has been painful for us. It's a painful cut to watch any of this, but this was a tough budget environment for us, and this is the best we could propose.
Speaking directly more the child poverty
I see.
program would be the new upstart that referred
Yes,
to.
we do have a proposal. It's one we proposed also in 2016. There's been some piloting of what the president has called a two-generation approach to child poverty. Frankly, one of our great hopes is to leave this institution better than we found it, and to leave rural America better than we found it. And one of the most tragic symptoms of poverty in this country is child poverty. The fact that it's risen on our watch is painful to all of us who work and love rural America. So that 1 in 4 children are considered poor in rural America is very, very painful. We're a development agency, and where we have an advantage is in our people and in our knowledge of rural America. This child poverty pilot asks for support to work in pilot in several communities, to make multi-year grants to institutions in rural America that we would feel we would know or we would learn about, who can work in a two-generation, work with parents and work with kids. And we feel that it merits a chance.
Okay. All right, Mr. Farr.
I was really proud of Secretary Vilsack's being chosen by the president to have the rural strategy, the rural, what do you call it, the team that goes out, task force?
Strike Force?
Strike Force.
Strike Force Initiative?
And the Secretary indicated that they looked at sort of the war on poverty started under the Johnson administration and looked at the original counties that war was addressing as the poorest counties in America. And here, 40, 50 years later, found out the same counties are just as poor, so that billions and billions of dollars that we've spent on sort of the war on poverty hasn't really solved the problem, haven't worked ourselves out of poverty. What, in the areas of persistent poverty, what share of R&D funding goes to those areas? And what's the story? You've changed it from counties to census tracts and things like that. Can you give us a better report on what's happening with really poverty areas that have just not been moved, and how we're concentrating money on the strike force?
You've asked a question that's near and dear to my heart, and goes to what we are doing in high poverty communities, both high poverty and persistent poverty. I think I want to say two things: what we're doing in strike force, and then how we're using how we differentiate between high and persistent poverty. One thing that I learned often in California is that if you just look at persistent poverty counties, you miss a lot of the poverty that is more viewed in a census tract. So you can have a Coachella Valley or a portion of San Jose County that is poor. So we actually have taken time in rural development to look hard and to say, look at these census tracts, even at below a county level, and to try to move our funding in these areas. That isn't to say that we aren't aware of the persistent poverty counties, most of which are rural in America. This is one of our highest authorities, highest important areas to work in. Let me say about Strike Force and our own work. Strike Force was really a transformative initiative of Secretary Vilsack to change the way the Department of Agriculture as a whole looked at rural America, how our people turned outward, didn't wait for a proposal, but decided to work in our high poverty communities, whether they were a county or a census tract. Once we designated them, we brought our whole force. We turned our people outward to say, what could we do? Instead of making communities look at us, we said, how could we work higher? And that's had wonderful results. We've put more people, more dollars in those strike force counties just by changing the way we work. It's not creation of new programs. I think the other thing that rural development is very strong at is when we bring the $38 billion of program authority that we're talking about here today in our core programs of housing and infrastructure and business. And when we can bring those to bear in our counties of high poverty, then we're really hitting both areas, where we're actually bringing our community facilities that Congressman Bishop mentioned, or our broadband, or our Community Connect grants, to areas of high poverty. Often we give if you're in a strike force county, you get priority points. So it means we look as an agency-wide and we say, what can we do if you're a strike force county, if you're high poverty? Can we do more of our regular authorities? So it's a good time at agriculture. It's been a good experience under the last 7 years, and we want to make this last.
Is somebody studying that for economic evaluation as to the sustainability of it? I mean, our foreign aid program, so much which I experienced living overseas, was so much we'll go in and help you. We'll dig the holes, we'll plant the trees, we'll give it all to you, and we'll walk away, and you manage the farm. And nobody had the skills or knew how to do that. Our military did that in Iraq. We gave Iraqis all these generators and never taught them how to change the oil or do them, and they all burned up. I mean, we just do a lot of dumb things. I hope we're not repeating that.
I don't think we're repeating it. I like to say we have to own the D in our word development. And I believe development can't just be done to people. It must be done with people.
Yeah.
So when you are citing self-help, or when you're citing the way it takes us working 3 years with rural communities to get water systems that are going to be managed. We're working with the very managers, or our 80-year partnership with rural electric cooperatives. I see a very different kind of development. It's not top-down, we build it, you good luck, you maintain it. It's very much a partnership with folks on the ground, whether in all of our programs. So I'm proud that really we've learned something in 50 years. It isn't just...
Is anybody writing that up? I've never seen any press on it.
That's an interesting question. We do a little bit of our own write-ups. I don't know what's going on in academia around this work. You make a good point. I think...
No, we have to recapture this rural spirit. I mean, we're all in this committee for the reason, all the right reasons. And I just don't, I mean, as Vilsack said, nobody in this town knows what USDA does and how extensive it is. And you've got an exciting program. I think everybody in America would like to. We're embarrassed about poverty in the United States of America. If we're really finding effective programs and realizing we made mistakes under old systems that we're starting over, I think that's a great message.
The funding for the self-help housing program over 30% to $18.4 million. I know it's a year after celebrating the success of the self-help housing with the 50,000 family building their own home. After seeing that, the reduction is a little bit disappointing. While the FY17 request is an improvement over the FY16 request, as you're aware, this is the only program out there federally that combines sweat equity home ownership opportunities along with technical assistance and affordable loans for some of the America's neediest rural families. The concern is the level of funding is not adequate to keep the network of self-help housing organization and related programs supporting the operations in the coming year. My question would be, what resources are necessary to maintain the self-help program at its current rate of operations in FY17?
You mean what it would take to maintain the $27 million then in FY16?
Yeah, what would you need to maintain that we've had in the past? Like I said, we've had it. I know it was an increase this year than over in that it was in 16, but
right. This is. What we have is a $9 million reduction from the enacted level of 16, and this is a painful cut. We love this program. Your chairman spoke eloquently to it. It does what Ranking Member Farr said. It builds communities. This was a tough budget for us, and this is a painful cut. we did our best in this budget. If you see authority to restore $9 million and you can find it, we would welcome that. This is a powerful tool in rural America. I didn't understand it as much before. I said it's modest compared to our entire housing program. And what I saw as we celebrated the 50,000th house was what it's doing to build community. It is a transformation. And also, you asked about what we know about the success. These are very successful homeowners. This is some of the strongest mortgages we carry on our books. People end up in these homes with a 35-year mortgage in the 502 Direct program. So this is, it's a win all around. And we're pleased to be able to support it more than we did in our last year's recommendation, but this was the best we could do.
So you do see the value of this program?
Absolutely. We love this program.
That we need to do what we can to try to make sure
we would
this program's
appreciate
up.
anything, but this is a wonderful program. It's a $9 million difference.
9 million is the. What was the basis of cutting it? It's.
You know, we started working on this budget last summer, and we go back and forth. We try hard within the administration, within the USDA. All I can say is that there's no question of its value. We just had a tough budget year, and there were programs we love that we took, we shaved off in order to make room for some wonderful ones that we also love. So this was our best, but there was no question of performance or underutilization. There's no question for us that we'll use every dollar you give us.
Okay. Well, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Farr. Have you got anything else? Mr. Bishop? Mr. Bishop, do you have anything else? Okay. And Ms. Pingree, you're good? So well, with that, let me say thank you for your testimony here and all of you being present with us today. Coming from a rural district, as you well know, as you visited back last month, it is important. Rural development is very important, and the work that y'all do there. So we want to try to work with you any way we can to make sure that your department stays vibrant. So we look forward to continue to work with keeping rural America vibrant. So thank you for being here, and with that, the hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.